who you are and what program you're in.
My name's Ahmed. I'm a Bachelor of Arts double major
Hmm.
in history and sociology.
Okay, okay, that's pretty cool. So, what kind of things do you do in those programs?
For sociology, I look into a lot of wealth inequalities and the effect poverty has on society.
Mm,
Um, and for history, I look at 18th century military history and
oh,
French Revolution.
yeah. Oh, okay. So with history, um did you specialize in that? Did you start out specialized or you started out as a general history? How does that work?
I started as general,
Mm-hmm.
just did some courses, and then I
Mm-hmm.
found what I wanted to specialize in. I just did all the courses that are affiliated with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how long is the program for you since it's a double major?
For me, so I'm going in my last year, so it'll be 6 years total.
6 years? Wow. So you must be
Yeah.
excited, hey, to be almost done.
Yeah, I really am. Like it gets really tiring really fast because you have to do so much flexibility when you're
Uh-huh.
doing a double major.
Yeah. So what are the plans after graduating?
Um, Probably going to go for a master's,
Mm-hmm.
and then I might either go into education after that
Mm-hmm.
or branch out into museum,
Okay. Is so museum like what does that mean?
like archival inter or museum historical interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
So like be in charge of like uh, showing people around,
Mm-hmm.
maintaining all the like figures and stuff that are inside the museum, and taking care of like all the archives that are in behind the scenes in the museums.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what inspired you to go into these programs, these two programs?
I've always been into history.
Mm-hmm.
It's like ever since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then for sociology, just started by doing the introductory sociology course,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I got into it.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. And we have a question here. So, why did you decide to be a double major?
For me, it was because I could not choose to do history or sociology as a lone major because I
Mm-hmm.
liked them both equally. So I just decided to do both of them.
Mm-hmm. That definitely makes sense. Definitely makes sense, but it does take, like you said, a little bit more time, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it takes more time because you have to do both of the major requirements, and then
Mm-hmm.
you also have all the breadth requirements you also have to do on top of that. So
Mm-hmm.
it really takes a lot of like figuring out when to do what courses,
Mm-hmm.
especially like the ones that are going to drop your GPA.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. And with all the courses I have to take, is it important to have like a mentor or someone that you can talk to, that kind of helps you with those decisions?
I think like when you're early on, you want to go to your professors as much as you can,
Mm-hmm.
just to get the niche of like what you can do with the program.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you start getting into your third and fourth year, you
Mm-hmm.
want to still be going to your professor, but what you want to be doing is you want to be building
Mm-hmm.
connections.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So you want to be having the prepared for like have them as your references for when you go to grad school or for like anything else you may want to be doing afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that definitely makes sense. So what do classes like history classes look like? Like what does a typical class look like?
Usually,
Mm-hmm.
like when you get to the 400s,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing seminars, so there's a lot of class participation,
Mm-hmm.
and you do a lot of readings. So you get 10, 15 readings a week.
Mm-hmm.
You read them, you come into class, and you just discuss them, and
Mm-hmm.
then you write a research paper based on a topic of your interest that's based on the course.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is this the same for sociology or it's a bit different for sociology?
Sociology is usually different because
Mm-hmm.
sociology has a lot more group projects.
Oh,
History doesn't have group projects much. It's more independent.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so what does a typical sociology class look like?
Usually you have, it's like a normal class, you'll have like exams,
Mm-hmm,
but you'll also have most likely group projects. You'll have a paper to write.
mm-hmm,
You may have like readings to do. You may
mm-hmm.
have to do like presentations.
Oh,
Really
okay.
kind of, there's a lot of like flexibility of sociology courses. You may even have to do stuff off campus, like volunteer work or like a community assignment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. We had a question here. So, how do you build connections? Earlier on, you were talking about how important it is to build those connections. So, how do you build connections?
Uh, Basically,
Mm-hmm,
once you're starting early, you want to find professors that you are you feel close with. So professors that um, you you first of all you like the classes, but then also you keep taking classes with them, and
mm-hmm,
so then they kind of get a breath of who you are,
mm-hmm,
and then and then that's when you start doing it, and then you look into doing like independent projects, so independent research projects with that professor, so
mm-hmm,
you really build that they know your writing, they know your research, and
mm-hmm.
so they can give you a much stronger like reference if you decide to go to grad school.
Okay, okay, that definitely makes sense. And the other question, so how are you finding the program now? Like, how has it been for you for the last 5 years?
I really liked it. Like I've liked university a lot more than high school because I've got to be doing what I want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's worth it to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. And so after, are there a lot of job opportunities within this industry or after this program?
One of the things that when you're doing degrees, say like a bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
is you're not you're not stuck with just doing a job that's associated with your major because
Mm-hmm.
you can do a lot of different things with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like what you want to branch yourself into. So for like history, a lot of people will use it to try to get into law school.
Mm-hmm.
Others will use it to go and do education. Some will do a master's. Some will go try to get into med schools. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really like how you want to apply the
Mm-hmm.
skills you've learned to
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, what kind of typical characteristics do you think a person needs to have to enjoy like the double major, like sociology and history classes?
You need a lot of patience because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times, like especially the introductory classes, they feel really dry because
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much instruction because you know
Mm-hmm.
you're just getting into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then as you grow more and more into it, you kind
Mm-hmm.
of need to start developing your critical thinking and like understanding that there is really no right or wrong way to do something. It's how you can present your arguments. It's all about what you can argue, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And the other question that I have, so after you have finished your degree, and what's the usual starting salary that you can expect to make having the double major in history and sociology?
Well, that really depends on what you're
Mm-hmm.
wanting to go into, but
Mm-hmm.
if usually like you'd probably be around 50, $60,000 would be like maybe you'd be around that range.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you go and apply to law school or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you would be making a lot more.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's really depends on what you're using your degree for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have a question here. So in your opinion, what's the most important question that sociology slash history answers? It's a good question.
For sociology, the most important question it answers is how factors, so say poverty, say crime,
Mm-hmm.
impact society.
Mm-hmm.
So really the importance of the questions for sociology is what impact does certain factors have on society, and how does society work to fix those issues?
Mm-hmm.
And and then history really works on the question of why it's important to like write on certain things that we choose to write on for history. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like why do we still write about World War One, and why is World War One
Mm-hmm.
important?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, okay. Do you mind repeating again what you said? You're specializing in 19th century history? Country?
Uh, yeah, so my main area is
Mm-hmm.
British military history and Napoleonic warfare.
Oh, okay, okay. What's interesting about it? What do you like about
Well, for me, the interesting part of it is that there's so, like with the British Empire, there's so much of our modern world that's built on foundations by the British Empire.
it? Mm-hmm.
And then for Napoleon, it's one of my favorite historical figures.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just blends in really well because Napoleon and Britain have so much in common with each other because they cross paths. So it just made sense.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So when you're at school, do you recommend um going to like the school clubs? Like are there any history clubs or sociology clubs that you can join to kind of broaden your knowledge?
Yeah, there's usually history sociology clubs. There are usually ways to meet other people who are doing the same degree as you, and
Mm-hmm.
you can just sit around and talk. And
Mm-hmm.
there's usually like events that are like centered around uh, maybe like preparing for grad school, or like what you can do
Mm-hmm.
with your degrees and stuff like that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely worth checking out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Last question that I have. So what advice would you give to someone who's looking at going into this program?
Uh, get ready to write. You're gonna be writing so much.
Yeah.
You'll start off thinking it's a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
then like by your third year you're gonna realize 2,500 words is like so hard to do because there's so much you have, and you have
Yeah.
to condense it so much.
Oh my goodness. Okay, okay. So is there like a final paper that you have to do, or
Yeah,
you kind of do a lot during the year?
for history, there is
Mm-hmm.
always a final paper you have to do, and then there's usually you have to do written summaries on articles and potentially book reviews, and
Mm-hmm.
then all your exams are written. So
Okay.
that's kind of like everything's written basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 What would you say to some people? I know there's some people who say that, at history it's a boring program. Uh, what would you say to that?
Well, when you go into history,
Mm-hmm.
you get to pick what you like, right? So after you do
Mm-hmm.
the introduction, like
Mm-hmm.
introductory courses, you may not find them interesting because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing you really like in that. But once you pass that, you really are choosing what you find interesting. So it's really, if you find it boring, well, it's only boring for like that introductory, but once you pass that, it's all about what you find interesting, and then that's the path you follow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, that definitely makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Is there any last words that you want to say or anything else that we didn't cover you wanted to mention before we finish off?
No, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on ProKonnect today. It was a blast having you on and learning more about the history and sociology program. What university do you go to?
McEwen University.
McEwen. Okay, okay, that's good to know. Well, thank you so much, Ahmed, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.